Hurricane Milton is rapidly strengthening in the Gulf of Mexico. Good afternoon, I'm Mike Nasa with this 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday night update on the tropics, and we are going to focus almost exclusively on Hurricane Milton as it strengthens there in the Gulf of Mexico, looking very, very ominous for areas of western Florida. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. This is the latest from the National Hurricane Center as of 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Hurricane Milton was at 22.4 north, 93.8 west. Winds of 85 miles per hour, so it's a high-end Category 1 hurricane on its way to becoming a major hurricane, which would be a Category 3 or higher. It's drifting east at 7, and that motion should continue for the next 24 hours or so with a little bit of acceleration, and then eventually we're going to see it head towards the northeast and then eventually the east-northeast, gliding into Florida by Wednesday afternoon. We do have a tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch for the north coast of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, just in case you get clipped by Milton as he moves off towards the east. The pressure is about 983 millibars as the system spins there about 800 miles west-southwest of Tampa, Florida, headed in that general direction. Now here's the visible satellite imagery. It's going to get dark pretty soon, but we have that bursting right over the top of the center of the hurricane, and that is a sign of quick intensification. We've seen a very sharp pressure drop throughout the day on Sunday, and it has really been cranking there. There's the infrared satellite imagery. No visible eye yet, but maybe we're beginning to see the start of some cooling around the eye and then some warming right where the eye would pop out. And if that's the case, we'll see the warming turn into an eye as it begins that intensification into a major hurricane. Right now, it is a very, very tight storm. Hurricane force winds only extend out about 25 miles from the center, which is good news. The bad news is we think that as it strengthens and fluctuates and heads towards Florida, it's going to increase in size through time. These are the GFS ensemble models, and they all agree on that eastward and then northeastward and then east-northeast track, kind of a strange snake-like track slithering towards western Florida. And again, don't focus on the exact lines in the cones right now because we're going to be able to zero in on it as time goes by. But we do have between the Big Bend all the way down to, say, Cape Sable. So in between that area, but if you are in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Sarasota, Siesta Key, Clearwater, Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, you guys need to be ready for a direct strike. And if not a direct strike, an impact from the storm surge. You know what storm surge can do on the west coast of Florida. We saw it recently with Hurricane Helene up there in the Big Bend area. Now here's the HWRF model. This is not good. It has the system striking as a major hurricane just north of Tampa Bay, but that would put Tampa Bay on the right front quadrant and the southern side there where you get the onshore flow of water, and that would be devastating for storm surge, to say nothing of very strong winds. A lot of the hurricane models want to bring this to a Category 4 or 5. Now, whether or not it stays as a Category 4 or 5 all the way to Florida is kind of a moot point, because after a while, we're going to end up seeing the system weaken but spread out. So would you rather get hit with a tight Category 4 or a spread out Category 3 with storm surge all down the Florida coast? It's just a bad situation any way you slice it. Nevertheless, they do show this becoming a very powerful hurricane of at least Category 3-4 intensity, and all of them seem in agreement with a landfall on the west coast. They're very close to Tampa Bay. So I don't know if Tampa is going to have its luck run out. It hasn't been directly hit with a major Category 3 hurricane since 1921, over a century ago. Upper level winds should be favorable, at least right now, for it to kind of stay in this safe harbor over those very deep, warm Gulf of Mexico waters. To the north, you have high shear, but if it moves in the same direction as that, that could actually help to enhance the outflow. And we've seen that multiple times with hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico when they've strengthened. Hurricane Opal, 1995, Hurricane Charlie, 2004. We saw it more recently with Hurricane Michael in 2018 and Ian in 2022. So it happens quite frequently. Now, all this is going to factor into the track. There's the hurricane down there, and you think, Mike, it's so far down there in the Bay of Campeche. A lot of times when they get down here, they need really strong steering currents to pull them out. and oftentimes they end up going into Mexico, Veracruz down here. The bad news for the United States is that this troughiness will leave Texas, and it's just going to be enough, along with this low pressure area here over Florida with heavy rains. I'll show you that in a minute. This area of low pressure and this troughiness is just enough to tug Milton and start to glide him towards Florida. So it's really close, but it looks like this time the system is going to get tugged on enough to pull up towards Florida. Now, where exactly it makes landfall, like I said, is yet to be determined, but as of 5 p.m. Sunday, Eastern Time Sunday, the official track has it crossing very near Siesta Key. Now, remember, if it is a large, spread out, dangerous major hurricane, we would have, we would have storm surge on the southern side. And think about the areas that would be hit with that: Naples, Marco Island, Cape Coral, Sanibel, Captiva, Charlotte Harbor. So again, don't just focus on the line. This is going to have widespread impacts. Look at this storm surge inundation map, and this is showing 9 feet or more possible all the way from areas down there towards the Keys and Flamingo and Cape Sable, all the way up the coast. So again, a landfall near, say, Sarasota could mean devastating storm surge for the entire southwest coast of Florida. So everybody down there, you need to listen to your local management officials, because if you're told to evacuate, please do so. Remember what Ian did to Fort Myers Beach. They haven't really recovered yet. Sanibel down here, you guys, in this situation, the Hurricane Center has it Wednesday afternoon sitting here as a major hurricane. That onshore flow, oh, look at all these areas here that would be impacted, including Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel Island. Everybody needs to look at their hurricane plans and think about where you would go if and when you're told to evacuate. We're also going to have rainfall ahead of the system. That could cause flooding. Now, that in part is due to this low pressure to the northeast of the hurricane, and that's also kind of helping to drag it to the east-northeast through time. When we look at the radar right now, it is a very wet, gloomy day there in the western areas of Florida. And so, like we saw with Hurricane Helene, when you have rain before the hurricane, that could exacerbate the flood threat. So we're going to have to watch that very carefully indeed. The key messages from the National Hurricane Center on Hurricane Milton. Number 1, it's forecast to be a major hurricane when it reaches the west coast of Florida midweek. Don't focus on the details of the forecast. There's significant uncertainty in the eventual track and intensity of Milton. It's so far away, 800 miles, that it's still not 100% where exactly it'll go and how strong it'll be. Number two, while it is too soon to specify the magnitude and location, there is an increasing risk of life-threatening storm surge and damaging winds for the west coast of Florida beginning early Wednesday, and storm surge and hurricane watches are probably going to be issued by Sunday night, if not by early Monday. Residents should listen to local officials and monitor updates to the forecast. Finally, heavy rainfall before Milton and with Milton will bring the risk of considerable flash urban and aerial flooding, along with the potential for moderate to major river flooding, and tropical storm conditions are expected within the hurricane watch and warnings area there in the northern Yucatan Peninsula. Remember, like I said, the wind field is just going to be close enough you might get clipped in the Yucatan, but we don't have those watches and warnings yet as of Sunday afternoon for Florida, but they're coming. What kind of hurricane are we thinking? Well, with a major hurricane, a Category 3 or 4, we're looking at devastating wind damage, and that doesn't include the water. The water is the big killer, not the wind, but as far as the wind goes, you don't want to mess with a Category 3 hurricane. So, again, be on alert on the west coast of Florida. I wanted to touch on Hurricane Kirk. It's a big hurricane, 85-mile-an-hour Cat 1, way out there at 37.0 north, 46.2 west, racing north-northeast at 23. It's going to be gone soon. Hurricane Leslie, 90 miles per hour. It strengthened a little today, still a Category 1 at 14.0 north, 38.6 west, moving northwest at 9. Leslie should weaken to a tropical storm and remain out at sea. When we look at the satellite imagery there of our storms, there goes Kirk. Way out at sea, there's Hurricane Leslie. Another good wave leaving Africa. We'll watch this one. But the focus from here on out is going to be on our Milton here, Hurricane Milton. Everybody along the western coastline of Florida needs to be ready and on alert. I'm Mike Naso, and I'll talk to you next time as we continue to watch Hurricane Milton.